Stocks slip as investors remain uneasy about the US-China interim trade arrangements and its implication for India. Caution over the India-Pakistan conflict also lingers. Healthcare and industrials are the big gainers, while IT and financials are the top tracks. The US order on drugs calls or setting prices at the most favored nation levels only for direct purchases by patients from manufacturers, significantly diluting terms of the original draft and propping the stocks. Hindalco slips after US arm novelist withholds guidance on macro uncertainties after posting an inline quarter. Analysts, however, remain upbeat on the outlook for FY26. Block deals seem to be making a comeback with some cheer in the market. Paytm sees a trade of 4% of its equity, while KFinTech has 10% of its equity change of hands. Hello, good afternoon. You've tuned into Business Lunch, coming live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Vinny Motiwala. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. Markets, we've seen a sharper fall coming in for the Nifty in the last 1 hour as well. Look at it. Nifty, as of now, is trading at the day's lowest point, down more than 300 points, 1.25% decline, 24,600. Nifty Bank down 0.8% as well. 54,940 levels is what the Nifty Bank is trading at. Now, obviously, yesterday we had seen a very sharp run-up, so that's why we're seeing a bit of a decline coming in also, and some bit of a profit booking that we could say. And on the other hand, mid and small cap, that's managing to see the outperformance coming in. Nifty Midcap is holding on to gains of 1/10 to 2/10%. Small cap is holding on to gains of almost 5/10% as well. That also has seen a bit of a fall coming in from the day's highest point, but outperforming the benchmark indices is what we're seeing coming in from the broader end of the market. Clearly, in terms of the movers that we're seeing today, we have contributors coming in from Sun Pharma, Adani Ports, as well as Bajaj Finance. So you have those pharma names on the positive side, and the negative side, you have the banking names coming in. So those private banks is something that is a bit under pressure. Pharma is the top sectoral gainer. Pull up the Nifty Pharma, that's buzzing away in trade as well. And this is also coming in after yesterday. Obviously, you had that executive order that came in from Trump. So on the back of that, we're seeing Nifty Pharma today managing to hold on to some bit of a gain of 1.25%. Obviously, it's still quite open-ended. We have to get some more clarity in terms of what's finally going to be happening in terms of pricing. But yes, that's what we're keeping an eye out on. PSU Banks also among the top sectoral gainer, while in terms of the losers, we do have Nifty IT, which is down and out in today's trading session, and clear pressure of 2% coming in for Nifty IT. So yes, that's how the market setup is looking like. Broader end doing much better than the benchmark indices. But let's move on and get started with the top story for today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today visited Adampur Air Base in Punjab and interacted with defence personnel. Now, his visit comes hours after his address to the nation, in which he saluted the valor of India's armed forces and reiterated the Operation Sindoor has not ended. We have Parikshit, who's joining in with us to give us the latest update on this front. Afternoon, Parikshit. What more are you picking up here? What should we be watching out for now?
Well, we've not seen the last of Operation Sindoor. It's definitely not over. The deployments at the border remain high. Let me start off by speaking about Prime Minister Modi's visit to the Adampur Air Base in Punjab this morning. This is India's second largest Air Force station. Indian Air Force personnel briefed the Prime Minister on Operation Sindoor, and the Prime Minister also interacted with airmen and air warriors there as well. Having said that, the situation at the border, well, the Air Force deployments, the Navy deployments on sea, and the Army deployments on land remain on high alert. We've not moved back troops just yet. And this is going to be the situation. We are going to see a tense situation at the border, or an uneasy calm for a few weeks before troops can be moved out as well. We've not seen any ceasefire violations since about 11:30 p.m. on Monday, but there were suspected drone sightings at Samba, Jammu and Kashmir at 10:05 p.m. Yesterday. At the same time, there were drones sighted at the international border by the Border Security Force as well. What is the consensus right now between India and Pakistan? Well, the DGMOs had a conversation at 5 p.m. on the 12th of May, and issues regarding continuing the commitment on both sides to stop firing and not initiate any aggressive action was discussed. Both sides also decided to consider immediate measures to ensure true production. Right now, we're not seeing true production, but the situation at the border is calm, and there will be more discussions between the two sides in the next few days. We've also seen how the Indian government has rejected claims of mediation which came from the United States. Yesterday, Donald Trump said that he managed to bring the situation, the conflict between India and Pakistan, to a halt by telling both the nations that if you want to do trade with the United States, if you want to have trade deals with the US, then you need to stop fighting. So sources tell us that there was no reference to trade in any discussions with US since Operation Sindoor began on the 6th night and 7th morning as well. The Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs has also taken up the India-Pakistan conflict. On the 19th of May, the Foreign Secretary is set to brief the committee in Parliament House.
Okay, Parikshit, thank you so much for that. Now, on that note, let's listen into the comments that came in from PM Modi made on how India plans to deal with the encroaching terrorism from Pakistan. So let's hear it.
अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो टेररिज्म पर ही होगी। अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पीओके उस पर ही होगी। प्रिय देशवासियों, आज बुद्ध पूर्णिमा है। भगवान बुद्ध ने हमें शांति का रास्ता दिखाया है। शांति का मार्ग भी शक्ति से होकर जाता है। हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। आने वाले दिनों में हम पाकिस्तान के हर कदम को इस कसौटी पर मापेंगे। अब ऑपरेशन सिंदूर आतंक के खिलाफ भारत की नीति है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने आतंक के खिलाफ लड़ाई में एक नई लकीर खींच दी है। एक नया पैमाना, न्यू नॉर्मल तय कर दिया है। पहला, भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ तो मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया जाएगा। दूसरा, कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। पाकिस्तान को अगर बचना है तो उसे अपने टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का सफाया करना ही होगा। इसके अलावा शांति का कोई रास्ता नहीं है। भारत का मत एकदम स्पष्ट है। टेरर और टॉक एक साथ नहीं हो सकते। टेरर और ट्रेड एक साथ नहीं चल सकते। और पानी और खून भी एक साथ नहीं बह सकता।
And post the Prime Minister's address to the nation, we spoke to a host of former diplomats as well as retired armed force officials on their views on the Operation Sindoor. Listen to what they had to say.
This is only a pause. Should they misbehave again, then they'll be dealt with a force that is absolutely unprecedented. We haven't, revealed all our cards right now. What I know and what most senior people know is that this was just a beginning. We just wanted to tell them that, yes, we can address your military targets. Should they react, should the terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan now react, and they are non-state actors. I don't know how much control ISI has on them. But should they do something, then the consequences will be suffered by the Pakistani government, by the Pakistani military, and unfortunately by the Pakistani public. Okay, if he has helped Pakistan fall in line, and if he has helped Pakistan realize that they have no choice but to listen to what we are saying, then he's done a great job. I don't grudge him any credit. Okay, it doesn't make any difference to us as to who forces or who cajoles Pakistan into behaving like a responsible state. That is what we want. And if President Trump has done that, that's fine. We are too big to be told by somebody, okay, do this and don't do that. We are a reasonable nation. We think logically. We have achieved whatever we wanted to do, and we don't grudge America any credit. Okay, they can take whatever credit they want for getting Pakistan online.
Terror and trade won't go together. This is in direct response to the American president's postulation that he told India and Pakistan that forget about fighting, let us do trade. Trade is the beautiful, trade is the great thing. Indian Prime Minister made it very clear, terror and trade do not go together. And finally, he has made, again, a very basic point, blood and water do not flow together. You can choose, and this is addressed to Pakistan. So in short, to answer your direct question, India's political, military, and diplomatic machine has performed very well. It is working in a coordinated manner.
We in the United States, and I assume in India as well, know that you have to take the remarks of our president with a grain of salt. He would like to take credit for anything good that happens, and anything that bad has happened is Joe Biden's or somebody else's fault. And of course, that's just not the situation. I do think that the dehyphenating policy of the United States, which has been followed by Republican and Democratic administrations alike, is the right one. And the attempt to put this back together and hyphenate it is a wrong approach.
In fact, listening to those comments that US President Donald Trump said about the ceasefire reached between India and Pakistan.
On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons. And they were going at it hot and heavy, and it was seemingly not going to stop. And I'm very proud to let you know that the leadership of India and Pakistan was unwavering, powerful, but unwavering in both cases, and having these, they really were, from the standpoint of having the strength and the wisdom and fortitude to fully know and to understand the gravity of the situation. And we helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop. And they have. And they did it for a lot of reasons, but trade is a big one. We're going to do a lot of trade with Pakistan. We're going to do a lot of trade with India. We're negotiating with India right now. We're going to be soon negotiating with Pakistan. And we stopped the nuclear conflict. I think it could have been a bad nuclear war. Millions of people could have been killed. So I'm very proud of that.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. And after the break, we'll get you more updates and news on the US-China trade deal. Stay tuned in. Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Now let's move on. The US and China have agreed to slash their steep tariffs on each other for at least 90 days. And this is tapping the brakes on the trade war between the two world's largest and biggest economies that had brought in some fears in terms of global recession. However, uncertainty is something that is still there and remains. Take a look at this report.
Yesterday, we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva.
U.S. President Donald Trump touted his administration's agreement with China to slash tariffs on each other for 90 days, saying it was proof his aggressive strategy was paying dividends.
Think about it. We opened up our country to China. They have very few restrictions, and they didn't open their country to us. Never made sense to me. It's not fair. And they've agreed to open China, fully open China. And I think it's going to be fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic for us.
The two sides said that under the temporary truce, the U.S. will cut extra tariffs it imposed on Chinese imports last month from 145% to 30% for the next 3 months, while Chinese duties on U.S. imports will fall to 10% from 125%.
We've gone from okay to apocalyptic to sort of merely bad.
Marcus Noland is the Executive Vice President and Director of Studies for the Peterson Institute for International Economics.
Where they were last week was absolutely apocalyptic. It would have resulted in supply chain disruptions that would have been something like the pandemic. There would have effectively been no trade between the United States and China. So a tariff of 30% is a high tariff, but it's a tariff that at least has a certain degree of flexibility and will allow life to go on, albeit at higher prices and maybe with greater uncertainty and delays.
Financial markets cheered the reprieve in a conflict that had brought nearly $600 billion in two-way trade to a standstill, disrupting supply chains and triggering layoffs. Shipping industry representatives said many companies may restart loadings of goods to get shipments in while tariffs were still low. But the uncertainty around any eventual deal may leave businesses wary of ramping up orders dramatically. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who led the weekend talks with China, said the next meeting had not yet been set, but that the sides were ready to continue negotiating.
Let's also get in a view from Goldman Sachs' Andrew Tilton on the significance of the tariff deal for the U.S. economy.
U.S. economics team has upgraded their growth forecast from 0.5% over the next 4 quarters to 1% and lowered their probability of recession in the U.S. from 45% to 35% on the back of the U.S.-China trade announcement yesterday. I think it's fair to say this was better than expected, more dovish than expected by most, if not all, observers going into the weekend. We had thought perhaps we'd settle somewhere in the 50% range for U.S. tariffs on China. In the end, the temporary, I should emphasize, temporary agreement is, for 90 days at least, is a reduction to a 30% increase this year relative to where we came into the year, a 30 percentage point increase, so coming down from triple-digit levels. Nonetheless, that was better than expected, and China to lower its increase to 10%, as well as remove some non-tariff barriers. So from that perspective, it was better than we had anticipated. I think it was better than almost any market observer had expected going into the weekend.
And shifting focus, U.S. President Donald Trump signed wide-reaching executive orders directing drug makers to lower the prices of their medicines to align it with other countries as well. We spoke to the management of Biocon on the impact of this order. Here's what they had to say.
It is really the big pharma products, because if you know how the market is split, 80% of prescription drugs by volume only account for 20% of the value. And it's 20% of prescription drugs by volume account for 80% of value. And that's the 80% he wants to shrink.
Meanwhile, McQuary's Kunal Dhamesha believes that Trump's new pharma order is a lot more diluted than what was proposed in September 2020. Listen in.
The way I would put it is the final executive order, which we saw yesterday evening from the US president, it's a much diluted version of what he had put out in September 2020, which, as Mr. Vaidi said, eventually faced legal challenges and was withdrawn by the Biden administration. But the yesterday's version was much more diluted in a way that, the focus is on patients who directly want to buy drugs from manufacturers. They will get the drugs at the most favored nation pricing.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. And as we slip into the break, here's some good news for our viewers. India's business news leader is now a click away. CNBC-TV18's all-new app. Get instant access to breaking news, in-depth articles and financial world updates at your fingertips. Download the CNBC-TV18 app now from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. Or you can just scan the QR code on your screens. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC TV18. As of now, Nifty is just managing to hold on to 24,600 levels. We'll keep an eye out on where it's headed. As of now, down 300 points. But let's move on. And the Chief Justice, Sanjeev Khanna, will demit office today after the brief tenure as the Chief Justice of India. He will be succeeded by Justice B.R. Gavai. And we have Ashmit joining in with us to tell us more on this one. Afternoon, Ashmit.
Well, just moments back, I had the benefit of a conversation with the CJI, and he said that as journalists, it's our job to be inquisitive. It's his job to be decisive. And, well, that's one aspect of his tenure, a 6 months tenure at the helm of the judiciary as CJI, which stands out. Decisive action being taken, especially in light of some very difficult situation that he found himself in. I'm referring to cash being discovered at the residence of Delhi High Court Judge Justice Yashwant Verma. Now, bear in mind, this was something that was out in the public domain. There was heavy criticism. Public confidence was at an all-time low, and that's when Justice Khanna at the helm as CJI took the action of putting out all the details on the Supreme Court website. This has never happened before. All the details, visuals of cash, reports by the Delhi High Court Chief Justice, all of those reports being put out. And then subsequently, he appointed a 3-judge inquiry committee which submitted its report. And that report, importantly, has been sent to the President and to the Prime Minister. The only case where a report needs to be sent to the President or the Prime Minister by the CJI is if there is substantial evidence found against the allegations, in terms of the allegations, and if there is cause for removal of that judge. So decisive action being taken there. Another bit of decisive action that he'd taken under his watch has been the disclosure of assets. As of today, out of 33 sitting Supreme Court judges, 24 of them have put out their assets and investment details on the Supreme Court website for disclosure, for public scrutiny. This has never happened before. There have been resolutions in the past, but the judges traditionally have been shy of scrutiny, have been shy of disclosing their assets. So again, another key message being sent out by CJI Justice Khanna. On the judicial front, important decisions that he took was with light to the Waqf Act. Bear in mind, the Waqf Act was passed by the Parliament. Subsequently, it was due to take effect. However, concerns were raised by Justice Khanna, and it is on the back of that the centre then went back to the Supreme Court, said that fine, we'll pause the execution, we'll make sure that until further directions there is no change in status quo as far as Waqf properties are concerned. And finally, on the issue of Mandir Masjid politics, there were a spate of litigation that was done at the trial court level, which raised religious tensions, which raised religious violence. Justice Khanna, through a spate of judicial orders, had put a pause to that by saying that there will be no such orders for surveys of religious sites being passed by trial courts. So a short, brief tenure, but nonetheless an impactful tenure that CJI Justice Khanna has had. Tomorrow, Justice B.R. Gavai will take over as the 52nd Chief Justice of India.
Okay, Ashmit, thank you so much for that. But now shifting focus, Hamas has freed the last Israeli-American hostage, Alexander on Monday, ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to West Asia. Listen to this report.
Israeli-American hostage Idan Alexander was released by Hamas and safely transported to Israel on Monday. Video released by the Israeli army shows Alexander being embraced by his family after 19 months in captivity. He was the last living American held by Hamas. Fighting stopped at midday in Gaza after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would pause its operations to allow Alexander safe passage. But there was no agreement on a wider truce or hostage release, as a global hunger monitor warned of famine in the devastated enclave. Hamas said it freed Alexander as a goodwill gesture to U.S. President Donald Trump, who was visiting the region this week. Netanyahu said Alexander's release came thanks to Israel's military pressure in Gaza and political pressure by Trump. Netanyahu said there would be no ceasefire and that plans to intensify military action in Gaza continued. The release follows four-way talks between Hamas, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar. Witnesses reported Israeli tank shelling on eastern Gaza City after the handover.
Okay, on that note, we'll actually wind down this edition of Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Thank you so much for tuning in. But here are some of the visuals of US President Donald Trump arriving in Saudi Arabia and being welcomed by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next now, you have Midcap Radar.